2019 was yet another successful year for the Nintendo Switch. The system sold very well. Of course, we got a brand new system in the Nintendo Switch family with the Nintendo Switch Lite, which was a welcome addition to the system. We of course saw tons of great games like Astral Chain, Luigi's Mansion 3, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. It was just a solid year overall for the Nintendo Switch. So you would think going into 2020, Nintendo would be doing everything to keep their momentum, and well, they really haven't been. 2020 has been a very barren wasteland for Nintendo Switch announcements when it comes to Nintendo themselves, and honestly, I'm starting to get concerned with it because 2020 has sucked, and I don't think you can really pinpoint just one thing that has made 2020 very quiet. There's been a multitude of different things that have just made 2020 a confusing year so far for Nintendo Switch fans and Nintendo Switch owners, and that's what I want to cover in today's video. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Without any further ado, let's talk about what's been going on, or the lack of what's been going on, with Nintendo so far in 2020. So like I said, this is going to be a combination of a few different things that I think is just making for a very questionable 2020 so far. Now this morning, there's some information floating around about Nintendo's possible lack of involvement at E3 2020 this year. Now of course, E3 is a changing thing going on in the video game industry right now. E3's impact has definitely lessened over the years, and it seems to be sort of a formality more so than something that actually needs to happen anymore, especially when it comes to bigger companies, as there are different avenues for companies to go down when they want to release their information. Now this information is basically stemming from an official exhibitors list that was leaked this morning, and Nintendo is absent from this list. Now there has been some commotion going on that in an interview back in January, Doug Bowser said that Nintendo would be potentially at E3 this year and that they enjoy the E3 format. But obviously if you're missing from the exhibitor list, maybe something is going on. This is not the official exhibitor list, as that will be released tomorrow, so this may be much ado about nothing. But I actually like Nintendo at E3 simply because of the Treehouse events. Now, I don't think Nintendo necessarily needs to have this big presentation at E3 every year. Obviously, Sony is skipping E3 this year, and Sony is of course releasing a brand new console. Microsoft does their own little thing in their own little building that just happens around E3, so the necessity of E3 being a thing isn't really all that big. But I do think the Treehouse stuff is very important because it allows us to see all of these games that are usually talked about during the Nintendo Direct presentation. It allows you to see how these games are going to work, and of course sometimes you even get announcements of games during the Treehouse presentation as well. So I enjoy watching the Treehouse stuff. I think it's really well done, and it allows you to see a variety of gameplay from these games that you are now being introduced to during Nintendo's E3 Direct presentation. Now if Nintendo does decide to skip E3, it's not a huge deal. It's just something that I wanted to bring up as it is a bit of a hot topic that's going on right now. Either way, I'm fine with it. I do think Nintendo does benefit from being at E3 simply because of the Treehouse stuff. You don't really have to have a direct presentation there or anything like that. You don't need a stage presence, but I do think it is good for the industry for companies to go to E3. The next 3 points though are definitely way more important in my opinion, and we're going to start things off with Animal Crossing New Horizons. Like, what the hell is going on with this game? Let's be honest here. Animal Crossing New Horizons releases on March 20th of 2020, roughly a month from now at the time of the filming of this video, and there are still so many questions about Animal Crossing New Horizons that haven't been answered yet. Obviously, Animal Crossing New Horizons is going to be Nintendo's big game for spring of 2020, so you would think that they would want to answer all of these questions. There's been so much speculation about what's going on with Nintendo Switch Online and Animal Crossing New Horizons. All these sort of things going on, like the island controversy, only one island per console. How will save transfers work with this game, or will they work at all? What constitutes whether or not you can use a cloud save data, as it seems like there's some asterisks that go along with that, like your Switch has to be lost or broken in order to access cloud save. Will there be any sort of in-game purchases as well, as this is something that has been rumored for a while? This game is a month away, and there are still so many questions about the actual basics of the game itself. What are you doing? What has been added? What is new? Everything has just been sort of coming down to speculation. You have people looking at images that are put out online, advertisements that are put out for the game, and having to deduce what things are being added to this game, and it's like, Why do we have to do this? This just seems absolutely bizarre to me. I feel like I know more about Doom Eternal, and I've known more about Doom Eternal, which actually comes out on the same day, March 20th, than I've known about Animal Crossing. I feel like I know more about The Last of Us 2. I feel like all of these games, these big games that are coming out in 2020, I know so much about them. And yes, some mystery is good, especially with a game like Animal Crossing that's something you have to experience for yourself. But I still feel like basic questions should be answered. Basic things that are being added to this game should be talked about. And why has information just been so limited when it comes to Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Nintendo Switch? I'm hoping for a sort of transformation of the series, an expansion of the series. I don't want to see it just be yet another Animal Crossing game. I want it to be something special, something spectacular. It has been a long time since a mainline Animal Crossing game has come out. And some people are saying, well, it's up to Nintendo when they're willing to talk about Animal Crossing and reveal everything that's going to be in the game. But I feel like fans want to know. Fans want to know why they want to purchase this game. Now, I'm not saying that the game is going to suffer or anything like that because of a lack of information, but you're not really doing a good job reeling in new people who might not know anything about Animal Crossing, who didn't have a Wii or a 3DS or a DS or a GameCube to play an Animal Crossing game. You're supposed to be bringing these people in. You're supposed to be drumming up interest, drumming up hype for this game. And Nintendo seems to be way too quiet about a game that's releasing in roughly a month that has so much stuff to talk about, yet so many questions remain. And I definitely feel we are way past due for a lot of Animal Crossing information. And every day that goes by and Nintendo's quiet about it just makes me wonder, like, what are they doing with this game? What the hell are they doing? Another thing we've talked about on this channel that seems to be carrying over into 2020 and is subsequently getting worse is the Nintendo Switch Online service, specifically the NES and the SNES games being added to the service. Now, this used to be a monthly thing. You would get new games added to the NES Online service every month. And while you could sit there and say, well, some of these games are definitely very questionable, there are things like special releases, which are just, you know, little things like a save state for a later part of the game or something like that. At least you got more games added consistently every single month. But ever since they introduced Super Nintendo games into the lineup, which was a great addition, don't get me wrong, Nintendo has definitely shied away from the monthly thing. They went away from the monthly thing to whenever we sort of feel like it. Now, we got a bunch of great games in December for the SNES Online service, and I thought, you know what, maybe this is good. If Nintendo's gonna make people wait a few months to get more games added to the service, at least they're picking some quality games, and at least some of these games are a lot of fun. But now we're seeing what I feared the most when it came to this thing, is that you would sit there for a few months, be waiting for new games to be added to the NES and the Super NES Online service, and then they'd suck. And Nintendo announced some games that will be coming out on February 19th for the Nintendo Switch Online service, and I really just wonder where they came up with these games. Like, is there a dartboard where you just sort of throw a dart and whatever game it lands on, that's the game you pick? Because the games being added are as follows. For the Super NES, we have Poppin' TwinBee, which is another game in the TwinBee series, which isn't a bad game or anything like that, but not really a top-notch Super Nintendo game that I think of off the top of my head. And we're getting Smash Tennis because there's already one tennis game on there, but let's add another tennis game. On the NES, we have Shadow of the Ninja, which, you know, not a terrible game, and Eliminator Boat Duel. Now, to be fair, I have a lot of nostalgia for Eliminator Boat Duel. I think Eliminator Boat Duel is a fantastic game. I used to go to this health club with my parents, and they had a kids area where they would just shoo off the kids while the parents went and worked out. They had an NES there, and that is where I was introduced to Eliminator Boat Duel, and I really liked the game. But those are the 4 games being added to the Nintendo Switch's online service for the month of February. Now, looking at things like Games with Gold, looking at what PlayStation does with the PlayStation Store and giving you free games every month if you are a member of their online service, it is laughable to think that these games are anywhere near on par with what those other companies are offering. And yes, the Nintendo Switch online service is cheaper, I get it, but still, there are so many awesome Super Nintendo games that you pick Smash Tennis over it. Where the hell's Donkey Kong Country? Where's all these awesome Square RPGs? You know, they sacrificed the Virtual Console to have this new online service where you're getting curated games every few months now, it seems like. And it's just like, why? You know, you should have just made a standard Virtual Console. When you look at the Wii's Virtual Console, so many awesome systems, so many awesome games to play. When you look at the Nintendo Switch, it's like, we got Smash Tennis. Let's get excited for Smash Tennis. There were over 700 games released on the NES. There were over 700 games released on the Super Nintendo. So far on the Nintendo Switch Online service, we've gotten 52 NES games and 26 Super Nintendo games. And these are the games you pick. These are the cream of the crop. Poppin' Twinbee, Smash Tennis, Shadow of the Ninja, and Eliminator Boat Duel. If that does not cause any concern in your heart with Nintendo in 2020, I really don't know what will. They're not taking this service seriously, and honestly, it's getting a bit tiring. Yes, I'm gonna play these games, have the stupid thumbnail where I'm looking at my Switch, but it's gonna be the mean face because I am not really looking forward to playing these games, and I feel like I should be, especially having to wait 2 months for games to be added to the service. And the final thing should come as absolutely no surprise to you, but it's something that needs to be talked about because where the hell is this Nintendo Direct? Look, this makes absolutely no sense to me. When you look at the Nintendo Switch lineup for Nintendo in 2020, there are 3 games that we know about. Three games. One of those games is, of course, Animal Crossing New Horizons, which we have so many questions about, like we talked at the start of this video. Of course, there's a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game coming out in March as well, and it's just, you know, I really don't care about it. Like, it is a remake of a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I played the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games back in the day. They weren't all that great. I don't know why everyone's excited to pay $60 for this game again, but I digress. If you like it, you like it. That's all that matters. And of course, we have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Yet another remake of a game that you can actually play right now on the Nintendo Wii or the Nintendo 3DS. Obviously, this game will have better graphics. Obviously, this game may have some additional content added into it, and that is pegged for a 2020 release. And that's it. That's all we know about. And it's just like, I don't get this mentality. Now, you could sit there and say, well, look at what Sony is doing. Look at what Microsoft is doing. We don't know much about their 2020 either. These are going to be quiet years for them. But yeah, like, they have new hardware coming out. That's why things are quiet when it comes to the PS4 and the Xbox One. Obviously, with new hardware coming out on the horizon, you want people to start buzzing about that. You want people to get excited about that. This is Nintendo's year to strike when first-party developers for Sony and Microsoft are not releasing games on those platforms. We know about The Last of Us 2, we know about games like Bleeding Edge, Halo Infinite, but beyond that, we don't really know much of anything, if there will be anything. Now, one thing that the PS4 and the Xbox One does have the luxury of having is, of course, these big third-party releases. Blockbuster games like Resident Evil 3, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Doom Eternal are all coming to the PS4 and the Xbox One very soon. Of course, Doom Eternal is coming to the Nintendo Switch at some point, but we don't even know a release date for that. And you might be saying to yourself, well, those other 2 games are just remakes of other games, and you just said that, you know, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and Xenoblade Chronicles wasn't that attractive to you because you've already played those games, but these games are reimaginings of these games. Resident Evil 2 on the PS4 and the Xbox One plays nothing like Resident Evil 2 did on the PlayStation 1 or N64. Final Fantasy VII Remake, really, aside from like the characters and the setting and the main story, looks nothing like Final Fantasy VII. But when you look at a game like Xenoblade Chronicles, when you look at a game like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, these games look exactly the same, just HD versions of these games. And I'm not saying that's bad, but these are coming from third-party companies. Your first-party companies are still releasing new games and franchises. And I just feel like every day that goes by is another day where Nintendo fans are getting a bit worried. They're saying to themselves, well, you know, what the hell is going on with the Switch this year? What am I looking forward to? What games are coming out in the summer? What games are coming out in the fall? And what games are coming out in the winter? Because we pretty much know it's coming out in the spring, and it just doesn't look all that great. Nintendo has done this year after year with the Nintendo Switch with very shoddy spring lineups. We saw it in 2018 and saw it in 2019, and I was hopeful that 2020 was going to be a change for them because obviously when you look at 2019 summer, there were so many big games that came out on the Nintendo Switch. It's like, couldn't you have spread them out a little bit more? Maybe put 1 or 2 of those games into the spring category instead of just putting them all in the summer category. And obviously all this can change with the Nintendo Direct, and we are probably still going to get a Nintendo Direct in the month of February, but it just seemed like a perfect time to start talking about things like this. And I'm just kind of concerned about what Nintendo is doing in 2020. Sure, they could come along and shock us all with a huge Nintendo Direct and talk about all these awesome games, but 2020 is the year to strike for Nintendo. This is your year to show your dominance. With the PS4 and the Xbox One fading out and brand new systems being introduced in holiday of 2020, 2020 should be full of great great Switch games, yet we don't know anything about these games. We don't even know what these games are going to be. At the end of the day though, these are just my thoughts on what is going on with Nintendo in 2020. You might agree with me, you might disagree with me, you might like some points, you might disagree with some points. This is just how I am viewing things, because to me, it seems very strange that we're a month and a half into 2020 and we know exactly the same amount of information that we knew at the end of 2019. It is a new year. It's time to start talking about new things, and every day that sort of passes by where Nintendo remains quiet on what they're doing with the Switch just kind of concerns me a bit more and more. But let me know in the comments section down below what you think of everything. Are you excited for Nintendo's 2020? Do you think it'll be worth the wait, or are you kind of disappointed that Nintendo's been so quiet thus far this year? And as always guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.